Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, showcasing the incredible women's hockey players from around the world through compelling interviews and discussions alongside your host, Chris Sinclair. Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Carly Jackson, a fan favorite goaltender for PWHL Toronto. Carly, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm so good. I'm just enjoying my summer, getting ready for the season, and I'm really happy to be on today.
Good. I'm so glad to have you on today. And let's talk about, we have so much to talk about. We have so much to cover. Your early career, what it's been like to be in Toronto, all that sort of stuff, your off season. I can't wait to dive in. But the best place to start is your origin story. What was it about hockey that kind of drew you to the sport?
Yeah. So my love for hockey originated from my father. So he mostly played defense, but I remember he used to bring me and my brother to his, pick-up beer league and, super early. I think it was on Sunday mornings. And I remember so clearly how beautiful of a skater he was. And I was so mesmerized and just entranced as a child that I wanted to do it too. And so I think I was 9 years old. He put me in, I wanted to play hockey, but he said, you have to learn how to skate. Because if you want to be a good hockey player, you need to be able to skate. And I'm like, okay, that maths. So he put me in a can skate kind of program. And I really didn't like it that much, but I was dialed. I wanted to be a hockey player. So it's okay. And then I started playing when I was 9 years old. And he had actually built a rink in our yard, between our yard and the neighbors. He borrowed an excavator from a buddy of his and dug out this giant trench system and created a natural filling plumbing system so that when it rained, he could clog this drain and then the rink would fill with water and freeze in the wintertime. And every year he would kind of upgrade it, where he had picked up these boards from the dump and had put them along the end so that when you shoot it, it doesn't go out into the street. And he picked up these fog lights from work and all of these amazing things that created this incredible space for me to really fall in love with hockey beyond any kind of accolade or team that I had made. It was just going outside every day after school with my friends and skating on the pond and playing hockey. And so that I think was where it really was nourished. And I had played novice house league my first year as a forward. I'd scored a couple of goals, but how it had worked is everybody had to play goalie. So I had played my game and my dad had come to check on me in the night to make sure I was asleep. And I had worn all of my stinky, sweaty hockey gear completely to bed. And I'm sure he was like, oh dear God, here we go. But I think from that moment, I just knew that this was something that I was kind of meant to do. And I had played minor hockey with boys teams all the way up through. I played in my hometown community. I played in some neighboring communities, and then I ended up playing junior B. So it was a 21 and under men's league for a year when I was a senior in high school. And then I had gotten a scholarship to the University of Maine. So I played there for 5 seasons. I was a redshirt, and then I did my 4 years of eligibility. I had graduated, and then I was drafted 3rd overall to the Buffalo Beauts in what was the National Women's Hockey League. That league eventually made a transition into becoming the Premier Hockey Federation, so the PHF. So I played for Buffalo for 2 seasons, and then I was a free agent, and I decided I wanted to go to Toronto. So I transitioned into a different team, which was the Toronto Six, and I had just something had flipped in my brain of, I wanted to win a championship. I wanted to be part of a championship winning team, and in Toronto, I had felt that was the team to do it, and I was really lucky. I went there and got to work with some incredible people, and we ended up winning an Isabel Cup, and it was one of the most special years of my life for sure, and it introduced me to Toronto. So after that, the PWHL came to fruition, so this would have been last summer, and I actually went undrafted, and I had just gotten a tryout in Toronto, and that was all I knew that I needed was a chance. And so I trained the entire summer knowing nothing, just that I was training for an opportunity, and I got one in Toronto. So I went there tried out for, I think it was 6 weeks, and made the team and had an incredible year this past season. We pretty much did everything except win the championship, unfortunately, because that's the ultimate goal. But we did a lot of really amazing things with our culture and some of the things in terms of wins and just developing, who we wanted to be as an organization. And I'm really excited to go back. I signed my contract to go back for next season about a month ago, I think now. And yeah, I am really excited to be back in Toronto for my third year, second year with PWHL Toronto. But I get to do what I love every day, and it's a really, really special thing.
Yeah, and I think I love that story, and I love that it's always great when a player has the opportunity to, not necessarily like it's not like, okay, no, I'm gonna be a forward, like I'm just like that's what I'm supposed to do, like where you have the opportunity to also, in your case, and this happens a lot, where you kind of like have to move through the different positions, right? Whether fortunate enough for you, it worked out really well, but a lot of times it's like I don't want to play goaltender, but I'll do it. But for you, you had that opportunity. What was it like for you to be able to, when you look back on how things started for you, what does it mean for, like, what did it feel like for you to be able to just lace up those skates? You had admired, the incredible the game of hockey for so long. What did it mean for you to be able to lace up those skates and actually be able to hit the ice? Especially knowing all of the work that's been put into literally building this rink for not necessarily just for you, but also for you. What did it mean for you to be able to lace up those skates for the first time?
Yeah, I think I just felt the embodiment of love, right? Because my dad had loved the game so much, and for me to get to do it was just a sense of confidence.
And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their diets and health so they can perform their best both on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is available now. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's melissabuffunos.com/course, and make sure to use code Rinkside to save $50 off the regular price. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode. And now, back to the show.
So I would say that being able to put the skates on and be part of this sport that I had idolized for so long was just this overwhelming sense of like love, from the love that my dad had for the game for me, but seeing something that I could identify of like, man, I really want to do that. And now being actually able to do it, I felt a really strong sense of self. It was a way for me to, I don't think that people look at sports as a version of self-expression, but for me, that's exactly what it is. I think at any age, if you were to watch me practice, play, warm up, any of the above that's included in being a hockey player, it would be a direct reflection of my character. And that was something that I was really proud of. And I wouldn't have been able to articulate that when I was 9 years old. But I could definitely say that that's how I felt, is that it was like, you see me playing hockey, that's who I am. And there was a lot of pride and confidence that developed for me over the years, but particularly the first year, because I was like, I'm a hockey player and this is important to me. And I love this game. And I didn't even know what I didn't know, but I had a great time and I was happy. And that was the most important thing.
Do you still feel that way?
I sure do.
Yeah. What does it mean to, like, especially after, not to jump too far ahead, but, with the ups and downs of professional women's hockey, unfortunately, like, let's be real, like there have been a lot more downs than ups. We're starting to see finally a lot more ups.
How does it feel to you to have like to maintain that mentality
Mhm.
of something, this is something you're truly passionate about, but you still had to struggle with the ups and downs? Like, how do
Mhm.
you maintain that positive mindset of like, this is still something I want. It doesn't matter the ups and downs. It's still something I want. Like, could you talk a little bit about that?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's been the story of my career, is ups and downs, either through the teams I've played on, my own individual journey. It's been my life in this space, and I think the thing that it's taught me is to be able to control the controllables. I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's like there's so many things that have happened, particularly in the past 2 years or year, where it's been beyond my control, and there are these life-changing instances, right? And I think I had a moment where I was like, okay, I can sit here and react to all these things that are happening to me, or I can take ownership and identify the things that I love about being a hockey player and what are the things that are within my control. And it's like, I enjoy every single time I get to step on the ice. I enjoy going to the gym and taking care of my body and building a machine, and I enjoy spending time with the people who love the game like I do. And all of these different things that I could really connect to as a human and buy into and just give and serve to. And then the cards will fall as they may. But it's been such an important lesson in my life because there's so much chaos going on all the time. And there's been some really amazing things, there's been some really challenging things. But at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I have trust and love in my process. And if I'm meant to be a hockey player for 10 more years, and that's fantastic. And if I'm not, then I'm going to give it absolutely everything that I have in me so that when I am done, I will feel very at peace about how I behaved and hopefully the integrity that I had in the way that I did things.
Okay, and that's profoundly good answer. And I think very well articulated. Could you talk a little bit about, as you'd mentioned, you didn't start out as a goaltender, right?
Mhm.
So could you talk a little bit about, maybe maybe you were forced a little bit into, let's say, rather than forced, encouraged to play goaltender as you went through the rotation. Could you talk a little bit about what was it initially when it comes to being a goaltender that really, especially someone again that didn't start out as a goaltender, what was it about goaltending that kind of stuck with you? And especially again as someone who didn't, you didn't start hockey as a goaltender, you transitioned kind of into that. Could you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about what it was like to move into that position, and what keeps you motivated to be the best possible goaltender you can be?
Mhm. I think originally it was like the love for the technique of it all, like making saves, catching pucks, being involved in the game. I think when I was a child, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And also, you don't have to take shifts, so you're just on the ice the whole time, and that's wicked. And I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to understand that it goes so much deeper than that. Like that might be the top or the peak of the pyramid, but it bleeds so much further down into the foundation of what it actually means to be a goalie. And one of the things I brought up was like your presence and being on the ice and being involved. And now as I'm much older and this is my fifth year pro, it's like being a goalie is being present, and you're doing your job, yes, but it goes beyond just games. It's being present with your team as a person, and as a teammate and as a hockey player, and giving in all of these different kinds of ways. But yeah, I think goaltending for me now is I love stopping pucks. That's kind of just a given. I think there's something about that I just love to do it. And maybe that's the goalie weird in me, not sure. But I love being a hockey player. I love being a teammate. And I think because I am so connected to the sport, it's very easy to give my energy and to give the love I have right back into the programs that I'm a part of. So I love being a hockey player, and it drives me just to continue to study the game and be a student of the game. I've been a big believer. A long time ago, someone told me to always be a lifelong learner and to apply that to every area of your life. But hockey's just always been a very clear path for me of love, and so it's I think it's a lot easier for me to connect to this sport. Um, but yeah, I love studying the game. I love understanding new things that I didn't before. I love understanding new experiences that I never even thought I would have had to have understand at some point in my life. And I just love this journey. Being a hockey player is so grounding for me. It's where I feel most like myself. It's taught me how to do that in different spaces and different environments, but at the end of the day, I feel very grounded in this space, and I feel very lucky I get to do it every day.
Do you think that you kind of maybe didn't realize it, but you kind of have that like goaltender mentality where it's like you look at the game, obviously being a goaltender, I say as if I'm a goaltender, but like you get to see the game in a very different kind of angle. As you said, like you're on the ice for the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, reflecting on the early stages of your career, do you think that you may have had kind of more of a goaltender mentality rather than someone who was going to drive the net, all those sorts of things? Is that maybe kind of what also helped you to land in the net?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this may or may not be a little surprising, but I think what actually drove me to be in the net was honestly the gear. I thought it was so cool. And I think I had skill sets as a little fella that helped me be a decent goalie at a young age. But I mean, when I first started, I wasn't very good. And I think I would say one of my strengths even to this day is the ability to read the play. And I'm sure that would have been really helpful as a forward as well. But there was something about goaltending, and I think part of it might have been the pressure as well. Like I liked having responsibility. And so those kind of traits really just aligned with what goaltending is. And I think kind of the stars aligned essentially in all the traits that I had as a person, the traits I had as an athlete, and then the requirements of the position itself. So as I got older, internally I'm always like, yeah, of course, like I want to play at the highest level. I'm going to play in the pros and it's going to be awesome. Looking back now, I'm like, wow, there was a lot to do there. A lot of work to go into that. But it wasn't be all end all. It was just, I love this game so much and I'm going to give my heart and soul into it. And I just have this firm belief that good things will happen and that it'll be special to me, and not special because of accolades or awards or teams or whatever, but just for the experience itself. So I have years when I was 11, 12 years old that are just as special as when I was 25 playing in a pro league and winning championships and things like that. Like, yes, there's things I remember more clearly, and championships have a whole other, I think, category in my heart, but it's being where your feet are. And I think I talk about that with young kids a lot, is there's always this expectation to be, oh, well, you're going to go to the show or you're going to earn a scholarship or this or that. And I always say, no, don't, like, that's too far ahead. Like, yes, goals are fantastic to have, but be where your feet are, because that's the thing that actually matters. I couldn't tell you any of my stats. I couldn't tell you any of my games. I couldn't tell you, maybe there's a few saves that stick out in my head because that's the athlete in me. But the things I remember most is the relationships I had with people and the way that the experiences made me feel. And I think if you give love into those things, then you're going to get it right back. Not always, but I think over the course of your life and your career, it'll come right back to you.
Well, and I think that's, again, just nailing these profound answers. But I would say that absolutely can, that's absolutely something that can resonate with anyone in any career, right? When you just love something, you will get that back to you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I will say, just to share my lone time in goal, I went into a butterfly at one time and I could not for the life of me get out of that butterfly, so I played the rest of the game in a butterfly position and I was so cramped up after that. But the point is, I did it. I put on that equipment. But to your point though, it is kind of cool to put on that equipment. Like, I enjoyed that as much as I couldn't for the life of me stand back up, it was worth it 100%. And I think your answer was incredible. And I think, this is, we've kind of mentioned how impactful your dad was, especially early on. Could you talk a little bit about, I think one of the things that goes unrecognized, unappreciated, is just how much family means to, it's any sport, but especially when it comes to women's hockey, right? Or especially when it comes to hockey, sorry. It's expensive. There are, practices, there are games, and the games are all over the place. And there's often a lot of driving because you're not flying anywhere. There's so much that goes into that. Could you just maybe talk a little bit about how much family meant to you as you were, especially like early on is incredibly important, but especially as you've had to navigate the ups and downs that we've discussed and thinking, okay, great. Like, the PHF is here. Okay, now it's not. Now the PWHL is here, all those sorts of things, navigating that as well. Could you talk a little bit about what it's meant to you to have family there for you throughout this process?
Family's been everything to me. There's no chance that I'd be doing what I'm doing now without them, and I don't think I'd be the person I am without them, not even close. But yeah, so a bit about kind of my earlier journey was one of the reasons I started hockey so late was because we couldn't afford it. My parents divorced when I was quite young, and it was totally like the right thing. It just didn't work out. But I was, living with my single dad, and I had my mom, but they were separated. And so I couldn't afford to play hockey until I was a little bit older. So I was 9 or 10 years old, and that was when my dad had met my stepmom, who's also become my mother as well. And that support of having her involved in our lives and as part of our family allowed me to play this sport. And it is very expensive, and it's hard to be accessible to it because it requires a lot. And I am so grateful that I had the family who allowed me to be in this sport in particular. I played other sports. I played baseball, I played soccer, but hockey had a little extra kick for me. And I'm not sure if it came from my dad's love or my love or exactly what kind of combination it was, but it was important. And my parents, they saw that. And my dad was typically the one to drive me around. And I remember this guy, he would drive me from a baseball practice to a hockey rink an hour and a half away, and then back to another baseball practice an hour away somewhere else. And it was just never a question. And as I've gotten older, I've really been able to recognize how much of a sacrifice and effort he made to just allow me an opportunity to play. And it wasn't to earn a scholarship. It wasn't to play pro. It was just because I loved it so damn much. And I hope that it was obvious to him that I liked it so much. And I think that's why he did it. But it was unconditional. It was just, you love this and you want to go, let's get in the car and let's go. And I just can't say enough about how important that has been in my life. And it just showed me a good example of how to give love. And it's not always in the most obvious way, but that sure was one for me. And now as my life has been a bit of a roller coaster in my hockey career and everything. But I remember last year a year and a bit ago, when the PHF had folded, it was quite devastating. At the time, it was myself, it was my friends, it was the team that I was signed back to. It had all just dissolved, and I was devastated. I was upset. I remember I had gotten off the call and I went downstairs and I sat on the couch with my parents and I cried for like an hour. And I don't even think we talked. I think I just cried. And it was hard. But they were there, and that, again, it wasn't really a question. They were just there for me. And I allowed myself to grieve that for, I think, about 2 weeks, where I was still doing my business. I was still training and everything, but I really allowed myself to be sad and frustrated and grieve for what I had lost and what we had built in the PHF. So that when I could come into the PWHL, I was coming from a place of a fresh mind, a fresh heart, and just good intention in the way that I was going to love this game in this new league. And I think I did exactly that. And a big reason was because of my family. They allowed me that space. They taught me how to grieve. They taught me how to talk about how I felt and to process those things. And then now coming to the PWHL, I'm like, a fresh heart, full mind, and I was able to experience it all and just really love it. And it's been so incredible seeing what this league has done in 1 year and being a part of it as a gift. And I'm so grateful I get to be part of it for another season. But it's all led from the people that taught me how to be me and how to find power within myself and how to be a good person and just love what I do.
I'll be honest, it's difficult as you're sharing your story not to have a giant smile on my face, to just like, despite the ups and downs, again, we talk about the ups and downs, but just to hear your story and just to hear how you've been able to maintain such a positive mindset. And it's always like, you know what, there are going to be downs, but there are also going to be ups. And those ups are going to feel so good. And I just have to work to get to those, right? And to have the support of your family, to be able to be emotional and to be vulnerable, I think is an incredible thing, especially something that we don't necessarily talk about in sports in general, especially hockey. But this is actually a perfect segue into something that I know is really important to you here. And that's, you talked about how important it was to have that support system in place early on. And, those people who are rooting for you, you are also rooting for the next generation of women's hockey with this program that you're affiliated with, that you're working on, that's going to be coming out this fall. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that, where it started, where it's at, and then let's talk about how our listeners, our viewers can actually help support this incredible program.
Yeah, so I had just been been in a bit of a creative space and really wanted to connect in a way to give back to my hometown, because there's just a lot of really amazing things going on. And I'm born and raised in Nova Scotia, and I come home every summer for anywhere between a month and maybe 5 months or 6 months. It just depends on the year, but I'm not always around to kind of contribute to some things. And one of those things is hockey, because I'm always away playing my season, and I don't have really the space to be able to do so. But this past season, a dear friend, a mentor, somebody I've looked up to in my community for a long time. We grew up kind of together, but she was a few years older than I was, so she was someone I was like, oh, like I remember her name's Lori Kinnear, and I remember seeing her on the ice and being like, oh, that's Lori. Like she was so kind to me, and she was a hockey player, loved the game. And anyway, her father, his name was Chuck Linney, was such a strong member in our community. And I guess one of the biggest things he did is he was a really great photographer, and he used to go to pretty much any youth sport in our town and take professional grade photos and send them to the families for free, just because he loved it. And so these kids would have a sense of pride and for what they're doing and how they look and the fact that they're athletes and things like this. And he created so much joy. And he unfortunately passed from cancer pretty suddenly, pretty quickly, and he was a big loss for our town and for anybody who knew him. And Chuck was such a beauty. But so his daughter Lori this past winter started a girls program for young hockey players in the community, and it gives them a place to play. And I've always believed that kids should play where they want to play. If they want to play with the boys, that's great. If you want to play in a girls team, that's great. But having a girls program provides a lot of girls that might not want to play with the boys a place to exist where they don't feel like an outlier. They don't feel any different, because they're just athletes, right? And so Lori started this program, and it's just one of the most incredible things. So it's called Linney's Legacy, which is in honor of her father. And it's just, she's bringing in all these incredible people to help teach and be a part of it. And I want to be a part of it too, but I can't physically be here. So what I've come up with is basically starting a charity for this program, where events that I do or things that I'm a part of, networks I can contribute to, is that any of those finances will be donated back to Linny's legacy and will be going directly to the kids, whether that's hockey gear, ice times, providing opportunity for people who wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise, but just straight back to these kids to provide them a place to play, because sport is a place where love can flourish, and in all reality, you learn how to be a good teammate, you learn how to be a good person, you learn to be part of something that's bigger than yourself, and it's a really, really important thing for communities, and to be able to contribute to one that's in my own hometown is very important to me. So yeah, if anybody would like to support that's listening, shoot me a message on Instagram. We'll talk. I'm collecting donations, and then we'll be donating the proceeds right directly to the program, 100%. And yeah, it'll be going straight to the kids and providing just a really opportunity for the youth.
And that's such an incredible thing. I think a barrier to entry for hockey is always obviously costs and all those sorts of things. To be able to remove that barrier, as you've shared just how much hockey has meant to you over these years, to be able to share that with other people is just the absolute most incredible thing. And I think, you know, now, especially as we're seeing how successful and enthusiastic the first year of the PWHL has been, I think now more than ever, it's, you know, girls are looking at this and saying, like, this is a thing that I can do finally. You know, like, I don't have to just kind of play this casually. I can do this, can be a career for me. And for you to be able to be a part of that, and to be able to partner with that's such an incredible story, and to be able to be a part of that, to just help, I think is absolutely critical. And so absolutely, anyone listening, anyone watching, I will absolutely also make sure that that I do everything I can to help get some additional funding for this incredible cause. This is something that we need more of, so thank you so much for doing that. As we look, and I think we need more of that, right? Like, I think we need more support for the next generation, right? Like, you have an incredible stage you're on an incredible stage right now. And I think for you in particular, Toronto, listen, I'm not from Toronto, I'm from Ottawa, so it's always going to be a little bit of a rivalry, but I'll say it, it's the Mecca, right? Like, Toronto is the biggest stage, right, for hockey. And so for you to be on that stage and be able to carry this message, incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So thank you for everything that you're doing in that space.
No, I feel grateful to have the opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
I can imagine being one of the kids in this program and what that might have meant to me back then. So as soon as I think about that and getting that perspective, it's an easy, what can I do and how can I do it? And let's let's run with it, because it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably brings you right back to, you know, starting out yourself, right? Like the struggles that everyone had, that you had to go through in order to get to where you are right now. The quicker we can remove at least some of those barriers, the next generation is going to be set up, and it's going to be incredible and so well deserved.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier, we're going to kind of shift gears here. You had mentioned earlier, you know, prior to the PWHL, you had the opportunity to play in the PHF. You were drafted 3rd overall. Could you just talk a little bit about, you know, not often do we see, goaltenders being drafted so high in the draft. So could you talk a little bit, talk a little bit about, like, first of all, what was it like, the draft experience just in general, but hearing your name, like, you didn't have to wait that long to hear your name. You literally had to wait 3 names, or technically 2, to find out your name, right? Like, what was that experience like for you?
It was awesome, because I had always hoped that my career would expand beyond college, and playing college hockey itself was a dream. And I figured, well, if when I'm done college, if I don't want to play anymore, I'm going to have a degree and I'll be able to explore my education or whatever it may be. And I kind of gave myself the space to understand that I might think differently about hockey when I graduated, and that was the exact opposite. I was like, I need more hockey. I want to be involved, and I want to keep playing. I want to keep competing. And so the NWHL existed, and I was like, I want to be a part of this so bad. And I had entered the kind of the draft portal, or the however you signed up to enter the draft, to make myself eligible. And then I had spoken to a couple of teams, and the Buttes were just like, we want you. We want you to be our dude. We need a strong goaltending presence, and we love everything you've done at Maine, and we just think you're going to be a real pillar in our organization. And I'm like, wow, this is music to my ears. I get to keep playing hockey for this like wonderful organization, and I'm feeling valued, and they're giving me love. I want to give love right back. And anyway, yeah, I had my name called third, and it was just really special because I had been away at university for so long, and because it was actually a COVID year, I was sitting at my kitchen table downstairs with my parents, and I was able to share it with them. So that was probably one of the most special things, because it was this unique circumstance, but I actually got to do it with the people that got me there. And it was really, really special to me. And I remember we just had kind of 30 minutes of where we had closed the computers and the phones, and we just talked about it. And I couldn't remember what we talked about, but I remember how I felt, and it was a lot of love and a lot of gratitude. And I had a great, lovely career with the Buttes. I love being a Buffalo Butte, and I love being part of the NWHL that turned to the PHF, and loved winning the Isabel Cup with Toronto, and being part of Toronto. And it was a really important stage of my life, and it got me to the PWHL too. And yeah, I just feel a lot of gratitude for that league, and the experiences I had, and the people I met, and how important it was for the journey of women's hockey, and for where we are now. Like, that was such a pillar of just change, I think.
Yeah, and I think first of all, like, what was it like for you to make that shift and start playing in Buffalo? Right? Like, what was it like? What were some of your first impressions? What was that experience like playing in Buffalo? And then, let's translate. We'll progress a little bit, or press the fast forward button a little bit as well. But then making that adjustment also to back to Toronto.
Mm-hmm. The city itself, I loved Buffalo. I remember people being like, "Oh, it's a very industrial city. Like, I don't know if you like it." I'm like, well, okay, I'll go look for myself. And I looked, and I loved it. I love Buffalo. When I go back there, I'm like, oh, it feels like a piece of home is there. And yeah, I just love the city, and the people I met when I was there. It feels like home. But I think the hardest thing transitioning was in college. Like, we were so taken care of all the time, and like looked after. Your minutes were scheduled, and they were completely dialed. And then as a pro, it's like when you're at the rink, it's like bada bing, bada boom, everything's lined up. But when you're outside of the rink, you're now an adult. And that transition was really hard for me. I kind of missed the scheduling and the intensity of it all the time, like in having school and all those things. And it was hard to adjust to that. But the first, I'd say, year or two was really challenging. And then I figured it out. I figured out how to kind of translate the things I'd learned from hockey into my personal life. And now I feel very well equipped to deal with everything, because I was able to make the switch of like, okay, if I were to approach this in a hockey sense, how can I now approach it in like a person sense? And now it's a really valuable tool. But going to Toronto, I had a couple years under my belt, and it was really amazing. I had gotten set up actually with the Billet family in Toronto my first year. So I had lived with this queer couple. They had a couple of twin boys, and I had lived in their basement and paid rent, and I really became part of the family. But that was huge in my integration into Toronto, because it was such a great environment for me to be in, with love and support. And we became very close, and I didn't so this would have been 2 years ago. So this past season, I didn't live with them because they live pretty far from the rink. But I still go over every Sunday for dinner, and I spent Christmas with them, and now I consider them family. And it was just such a perfect way to integrate me into Toronto. And now this is my third year going back, and Toronto is home, and Nova Scotia is home, and Buffalo is home, and Maine is home. And there's all these places I've been able to, find pieces of love in my heart, and that I've just carried with me this whole way. But I really love being in Toronto. It's quite the gift. I've got family there. I love the city. I love the support. I love that it is the mecca of hockey. Like, the energy is undeniable, and it's very, very special to be a part of. And I'm just grateful I get to give my love right back in this space.
So, we're going to talk about the PWHL in just a moment. We've alluded to it a few times now, and I think everyone's really excited to hear about your the first season and all that sort of stuff. But I want to take just a bit of a step back here. So something that you've said continuously during our conversation has just been about how appreciative you are of the love and support. Like, love and support is clearly something that means something to you. And I mean, like, that sounds silly because obviously it matters to a ton of people, but for you, I think, especially as an athlete, there's so much pressure, right? Especially prior to the PWHL. Typically it was, you go to college, you go to university, you maybe play overseas if you wanted to continue your career, but you kind of often had to rely on whatever the whatever you studied in university, whatever your degree or diploma was. Could you talk a little bit more about just how much that love and that support has meant for you throughout your entire career? I know we've touched on it a bunch, but it's something that I continue hearing you say, is just how appreciative you are, whether it's your billet family, whether it's your biological family, there's just so much love. And I can feel that and appreciate that love. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's everything. And I credit my parents, honestly, for developing that in me as a kid. And I feel like I've always been this way. But as an adult and having a more connected sense of self, I've really been able to dive into it and be just self-aware of my life, and that I get to do this. Like, it's everything I dreamed of. And so I think my perspective is always very much in a place of coming from a place of love, gratitude, and compassion. My job is to play hockey and to be a hockey player and to have influence on other hockey players, and that's like the coolest thing ever. So amidst all of the chaos of the X's and O's of things that might stress you out, it's like I've always felt very grounded and connected, and I think that's because of the gratitude. But in what I love about what I get to do and what I love about life, and I think that's what's actually really important. I think it's quite easy to get stressed out, and particularly about things that are beyond our control, and that's human nature. That's circumstantial. There's different times in your life where it's really intense and not. But if you can always have just a little extra bit of perspective of love, compassion, and gratitude, I think you're going to be in a pretty darn good place to have a good intention into whatever you're doing as an athlete, as a student, as a community member, as a friend, as a family member, everything. Like, I think that if that's at the root, that perspective is at the root of what you do, you're going to be making the world a better place. And I think that's what we all want to do.
Oof, okay, that was profound. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I think that will absolutely resonate with a ton of people. And I think the other thing too is, especially when it comes to you have been such, when we think about the PWHL, you've been someone that a ton of fans, while they may not have been able to see you play as often as I'm sure they would have liked to have seen, as much as you would have liked to have played, you have become such a fan favorite. And there are a multitude of reasons as to why that is. But I've heard stories of, people waiting to connect with you, but you're signing autographs. You're like, it'll be 45, she's she's signing a bunch of autographs. Like, that's it. Like, it's going to take some time for us to be able to connect you with her. There have been so many stories I've heard about that, and the way that, or how you've prioritized fan connection and fan engagement. You're on social media, you're so good with that. Could you talk a little bit about what it's been like to, I don't want to toot your own horn, but I'll do it. But like to be such a fan, like a fan favorite, the mullets, all those sorts of things, they come out, they're out in full force. What does it mean for you? I think, to be honest, I think as a player, but also, in the queer community as well, what does it mean for you to be that icon in this space?
Mm-hmm. I feel very lucky to be able to do it. It's like an honor, right? I get to be in this space and I get to be in this role, and I get to have this influence. Like, that is something I think I dreamed of as a kid, and I always kind of imagined it as a hockey player. And now, because of how unique and special this league is, it's also developing into a very personal thing. So I get to meet people and connect with people over series of games and seasons, and we're connected through hockey, but it's even deeper than that. It's like, I remember families I met in Buffalo and in Toronto, and it's either through their kids being obsessed with goalies or whatever, and I still connect with them on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and they're growing up, and you're still sharing experiences, and you stay connected with these people, and it's about hockey originally, but it's so much deeper than that, and it's like about life, and hockey's the conduit, but connection and spreading joy is really something that's so powerful in this league. So for me to be in a situation where I was the third goalie this past year, so I'm in the stands during games, and I get to have these interactions with people, it's like, what a great opportunity to connect and to spread some joy, right? And to live my dream, because that's part of being a hockey player. And I love getting to do that. And I love being able to be in a role where I do that because of what I do, playing in the PWHL, playing for PWHL Toronto, but also because of who I am and who my family raised me to be. It's a gift, and I appreciate it. And it's just exchanging energy, right? Like, I'm giving love, people are giving me love right back, and it's a really powerful thing, and it just feels very important. And this game brings us together, but to create a space that makes the world better is what it's all about.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I've also said this part, that I will say it until I'm blue in the face. But the most incredible sporting experience I've ever had, and this goes for any sport, has been the PWHL. And the reason for it is exactly what you said, right? Where it is the first time I've ever experienced a sporting event in which everyone just loves, which is great. Like, it's even if, like, I'm cheering for this team, you're cheering for that team. Like, it's just such, like, it's indescribable, the feeling that you have. Like, you have to experience a PWHL game, because there is just, it doesn't matter who you're cheering for. We're all just passionate about women's hockey, and we're all here, and it's the most inclusive, most supportive environment. You're seeing tons of incredible signs, and we talk a lot about the young girls in the stands who are holding up those signs that are always epic signs, but there's also the young boys in the stands as well that are just as passionate about women's hockey and the growth of women's hockey, and the product on the ice. You're seeing sellouts. Like, when you have a unique perspective in that you have the opportunity, as you said, to be in the stands. Mm-hmm. When you look around in those stands, you're not, yes, of course, you're looking at the game, you're following the game, you're obviously cheering loudly for your teammates. But when you have that moment to kind of look around, what does it mean for you to look around in those stands? And again, just to see that inclusivity, that support, those signs, those passionate fans what does it mean for you, especially as someone who went through the NWHL, PHF, folding, not knowing what your future was going to be, and to see this? What does that mean to you?
It's the coolest thing ever. And being in the position I'm in, it gives me the opportunity to observe almost a lot of quiet moments, right? Because in a typical game day, I do all of my work in the morning, right? I'm training, I'm getting, doing my work. And then when game time comes around, I get to watch and I get to interact with people. But mostly I just get to take everything in. And I think when you're playing, and even there was a game I got to back up this year, it's like you're doing your job. So you're dialed, you're focused. It's like you're not completely like this, but you definitely have to do your job. So you have to be focused on the thing, on your task and being a hockey player. But being my role as a third, I really get to observe everything, and I get to see it, and I get to experience it, one, from fan interaction, but also two, just by watching. And the energy in the building, like you said, it's undeniable. It's so incredible, and you see it from I love it, like families and kids who now see opportunity and know nothing different of professional sports, and women in professional sports, and men in professional sports, and all of these things that will grow up, and that is such the norm, and that is so powerful. But there's another entity of people where I'd say there's two more that I really connect with, and people that feel seen, and I think and they feel welcomed and like they belong, and I think that is so special. And I just like love it when people feel like good to be themselves. I think that's so powerful. And then the last one I noticed, and this one holds a really special place in my heart, is I remember one of the first games, I was just taking a look around, and one of the things I was most proud of was like the older women that were a couple probably, but grew up as roommates and had life together as roommates, and or whatever, that are embracing each other and with tears in their eyes, just so ecstatic to be there. And the energy that they exude into the building is phenomenal. But it's like that person or those people would have been me had I been born at a different time. Like they would have, I'm sure, and I'm making assumptions, but based off of some of the things I've seen, it's like these to me feel like people that would be a part of this if they had been born at a different time, right? Or where they feel represented, or they feel seen, or just they're like, this is what we've always dreamed of, or this is something that I could see myself in when I was 20 years old, 25 years old, whatever. But they're so connected, and it's kind of like a damn about time, but also a sense of like, I'm just so happy to be here. And you feel that in the entire building, and it's just really special. And I get to see all of it, and that's really powerful for me. And it kind of fuels my internal drive, but it also just gives me a really good perspective, and then I'm able to give it back. And it's kind of like a feedback cycle, but it's really incredible. And I feel grateful that I get to have that perspective, and I've gotten that out of the opportunity that I've been in.
Wow. I almost got emotional. I almost started tearing up as you were sharing that story. I think that's exactly, it's great to see the product on the ice, and the product on the ice has been spectacular, and the, sellouts and all this sort of stuff. And it's been amazing. But I think it's also equal to that is also what happens in the stands. And what happens in the stands is something magical. And I think you summed it up perfectly there. As we wrap up the show here, we now come to a segment that is just like a fun, let's ask Carly Jackson a bunch of random questions. That's what I'm gonna do here. These are I always say these are scientifically proven questions to really get to know Carly Jackson. And it's the crack team here at the Rinkside Rundown podcast, which is really just myself and my dog, but we worked so hard to come up with these questions, mostly my dog. And so I'm hoping you're ready for that.
Oh, so ready.
Okay, perfect. So I want to know, first of all, you released recently, or you shared rather, an image of your new mask. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this was the helmet that I wore this past season, but it had been sent to me, and it was ready to be painted, right? And I had it, and I was like, I don't know what I want to paint on it. And the goalie helmets to me are a representation of self. It's art, it's self-expression, in more of a like drawing kind of way. I know that probably isn't the right term, but it's art on your face. It's art on your mask. And there was nothing in my head that I'm like, man, I feel so like I feel so passionate about this design. I didn't have that, and I've always had that. And I'm like, okay, then I'm just gonna sit on it. I'm just gonna wait and see. And so I started wearing the mask regardless of no paint or not. And what I started noticing is that because it was ready to be painted, there was no like finish on the mask. All of the puck marks show up on it. So throughout this entire season, every puck mark from every practice, it was only 1 year, now is appearing on my mask and on my helmet. And I had tweeted this photo of like, this is my mask, and it's painted by pucks. And it's so simple, but it's a direct reflection of all the work I put in just this 1 year. But also it's so uniquely simple because it's like every single puck has a story behind it. Every single mark has a story behind it. And I think it also shows that I have a very hittable face, and I use that to my advantage.
It's funny because, well, that was funny, but also, I always felt like if I was a goaltender, I'd be like, I don't know, I'll just do like a black mask or I don't know how you pick a design, right? So, I think that's a really unique perspective where it's like, you know what? I take a bunch of pucks out the face, so why not embrace that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to know, what are you most proud of from this past season?
I think the change that we've made in society and sport, I think, if I were to define it, the change in women's sports in the past 5 years has been incredible. But to see a league from year one of this league existing to have exploded so much has been phenomenal. And women's sports is just blowing up right now. And soccer, basketball, softball, hockey, all of these different entities. But for it to be evolving into something that is, aligned with sports culture, but also uniquely different in its own sense, I think is really powerful. And the effect that that's having on people and the joy that people can find in it, I think that is something that I'm proud of as a hockey player in this league. And I just love our organization. Like, we ooze everything I just talked about, and I love being in this space because everything about PWHL Toronto has allowed me a platform, an environment, support, a culture to be nothing but myself and to be nothing but the best hockey player I can be, and it's celebrated. So I just feel very proud to be where I am, involved with who I'm involved with, and to get to play hockey every day and to have an influence on people who love the game like we do. So I just feel a lot of pride, and I feel a lot of gratitude and a lot of love getting to do all of this.
I love that love continues to be a through thread for you throughout throughout the entirety of your career. That's fantastic. What is, I think this is a unique opportunity to be able to connect with a hockey player where you're not actually playing games. I say you are in your off season, but let's be honest, there's never really an off season for a hockey player. You're still doing stuff. What does the off season look like for Carly Jackson?
Yeah. For me, it's kind of my like quiet time, in the sense of I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, but it's called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and it's all about falling in love with the process and the simplicity of being in quiet time, or just not under the spotlight. So it's like I move home for the summer. I live in the woods with my parents, and I go to the gym. Like right now I'm at 6 days a week, and I'm just following this program, and I'm training. I'm on the ice a couple times a week. But it just feels very centering, where it's not, there's no spotlights, there's no like shining light on the stage. It's just back to the roots of what I love about hockey, and and training hard and working hard towards my goals and being around my family. And it's always so grounding for me to get to do this. And then I come into the season and just spread that to the people I get to spend time with. But yeah, the off season is just a lot of quiet work where I'm kind of building, growing, and then coming out and blossoming into something that I don't even understand yet for next year. But it's just putting in the work now and then carrying that into the year. But really recharging with family time and things that make me feel most like myself.
Good answer. I like that. When you're preparing for a game, what would you say is your pre-game go-to meal?
Oh, always breakfast for dinner.
Oh, nice.
I love
Okay,
breakfast.
great. Okay. What's on the menu?
Like always a staple of like eggs, bacon is my favorite, but some sort of like protein-esque situation. Sometimes it's chicken if I gotta mix it in there, and toast. Just simple but perfect.
In all fairness, that sounds delightful, and I asked that question knowing that my mouth's going to start watering. So here we are. As you prepare for a game, or just in life in general, what is what is one song that you would if we think about like one song that you could listen to for the rest of your life, like it has to be one song, what would it be? And I ask that with the caveat, you don't have to have it playing all the time, but if you were to play any music, it would be this song.
Actually, I've actually been thinking about what you just described as this song for probably the last, I don't know how long the song's been out, but I feel like a year. Like I heard that song, I want to say last fall, and it's called Burn, Burn, Burn by Zach Bryan. And to me, what the song is about is just embracing all that life has to offer. So it's like, I want to mess up and make mistakes and feel things that might be perceived as bad, but aren't actually bad. They're just part of life, as much as I want to experience the highs and the joys and the rushes of the good things too. And I find I listen to it sometimes on the way to the rink, sometimes I listen to it before games, but it really puts me in a perspective of embracing what's to come and letting go of expectations and just experiencing that day or that game or that whatever is moment I find myself in, is just experiencing it. And that's it. Feeling whatever I'm going to feel. Responding in a way that is aligned with my character, and then that's it, and enjoying it, even if it might be perceived as negative or positive or whatever it just is. So I find that that's a song that totally gets me in a really good space.
Good call. I like that one. What is something that still remains on your bucket list?
Walter Cup.
Good answer.
I got an Isabel Cup, so I feel like Izzy's like my girlfriend, and now I need Walter, and Walter would be my boyfriend, and it'd be great.
And everyone would be happy.
Yeah.
I like that. What's something that people may not know about Carly Jackson?
I think one that's really fun is I'm a total nerd. I love video games, and I'm like so proud of that. My brother grew up playing a lot of video games, and I idolized him so deeply. At the time I didn't know, but as an adult I can
you can say
that.
Yeah.
And I just like love playing video games. I love storytelling. I love being immersed in a different perspective, a different life, whatever it is, a different challenge. I play them competitively. I play them casually. I'm working on some computer stuff this summer where I'm working on building my own computer and creating a whole setup. And eventually, I think this winter, actually, I'd like to stream and kind of spread, I guess, my love of storytelling and video games into something that's accessible online. But we'll see if it aligns with the hockey schedule. But that's something just a little bit about me that beyond the hockey player.
Okay, so then I know, much like myself, everyone's going to be wondering, what's you don't have to tell me what's your all-time favorite game, because I think that can sometimes fluctuate, but what is a game that you find yourself going back to continuously?
Yeah. Oh, I loved the Zelda series.
Yeah.
The whole, from its entirety. I played it when I was a kid with my brother, and I'm playing the newer versions now as an adult. I bought a Nintendo Switch when I made the team this year because I'm like, man, we're gonna travel and I want to treat myself, and this is gonna be my treat, is this Nintendo Switch. So I'm playing on the planes, on the bus, all that. But I love the storytelling in that game and the idea of being a hero and helping people and learning about communities and cultures, and it's just one of the staples of video game and stories. And I will always play all of those games as they continue to come out. Is like Zelda, sign me up.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I get that. Yeah, it reminds me of the old N64 days.
Yeah, I still have one actually.
Oh, I am very jealous. I wish I held it onto mine, but it was like, I don't want it. Now I really want. I wish I had it. It's Mario Kart for me is always the go-to, or Bond, 007.
That
What?
was the OG.
Yeah, exactly right. What is we'll end with this one. What is something that motivates and inspires you? And that can be either or, personally and professionally.
I think it's the examples from like the examples of connection and humanity that I see in the people around me. And that goes through my family. It goes through, I think, particularly during the hockey years, my teammates, and seeing how they do things. And it's everybody's in such a different way, but you find these moments of beauty in how people do things that is just like what it's about. And I think maybe just a quick example would be like I remember seeing Renata Fast for this first time and watching her practice, and the integrity with which she did a very simple drill, a simple rep. But I just remember watching her and being like, no, there's no secret as to why she is so good and like why she is the way she is. You watch her do one rep and it's just reflected so obviously. And I think that there's moments like that that you see from your teammates on the ice, off the ice, that are just really beautiful. And I find that really motivating for me because I'm like, okay, I have that too. And whether I can identify it or not, other people see that around me. So if I'm living to my truest self and to my most connected self, then I'll inspire that in others, and just create this ever flowing sense of connection and love and power. And you're doing it in a hockey space, so you get to reflect that into how you play your game, and then we play games throughout the week and it's reflected into the fans, into the hockey culture, and then into society and all of these things. So I would say, yeah, sorry, long answer, but I look up most to the people that I get to spend my time with and to learn from them as people.
As we wrap up here, I just want to say, and I think this is something that a number of listeners and viewers will be able to attest to, but every single one of your answers, you could have, provided some sort of cliched answer, but every one of the answers you provided today was profound, insightful, and thoughtful. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time today. You didn't have to, but thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me, to tell your story. I know there's so much more that we could cover. There's, being an Isabel Cup winner, what that was like. But I think what you were able to share today is a definition of the kind of person you are, the character you are. And I just wanted to say thank you once again. I'm disappointed to have to say goodbye. This has been profoundly impactful for me. And I hope that the listeners and viewers feel the same. So just once again, Carly Jackson, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and it's such an awesome space. So I hope to be back.
Oh yeah, you said that now, so I have you quoted, and I can't wait to have you back. It's going to be great. And there you have it, folks. For Carly Jackson, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.